Oh.
What's up, how are you, sir? How are you? Good evening.
Maybe, I don't know if Robert would be here by now if he's gonna make it.
No, I got it wrong.
Get off that easy.
I would think,
Rob never called back on whether he was gonna make it or not.
I know he's on third shift now, so he may,
Tyson's online.
Who needed it? You can have my copy. Patrick, will you give him my copy? Or, sorry. And what do you need me? Because you can drop it.
You gotta have. Thanks, that's the one.
I know you asked right at the point, so I'm like.
Nice try.
looks like everybody's in place. When I see Tyson on there.
Yes.
I know. Oh, check.
Yeah, this is it.
All right, let's call to order the Airplane Commission meeting for November 6th, 2023. Nicole, if you could call we'll stand for a pledge first.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, Nicole, if you would, call the roll, please.
Adkin,
Here.
Bothwell,
Here.
Royals,
Here.
Fidel,
Here.
House, Hicks,
Here.
Hunt,
Here.
Nevers,
Here.
Knuckles,
Here.
Pearson,
Here.
Todd,
Here.
Wright,
Here.
Reedy.
Here. All right, before us are the minutes from October the 2nd for our review. They're mailed out, emailed out. Anybody got any questions, concerns?
I do.
Okay, what you got, Bob? Puzzle?
I've asked in the past that our minutes simply reflect the action that has been taken rather than to expound upon the meeting, make a transcript out of it, so to speak. The reason for that is there are bound to be omissions or the opportunity for whoever the note taker is or so on to slant that, whatever it happens to be, as is the case here again tonight. So I'd like for us to table these minutes. until
What is
we
your,
can sit
what's
down
your
and talk
objection
about
to what area?
it. Well, it's not complete. It doesn't, does not show everything that went on. And I'd rather not have to discuss that in an open meeting. I can if you'd like to discuss that, but there were comments, for example, that were made in the meeting that are not here. Mr. Atkins was called a liar twice. Randy is a liar for the comments that were made. We had other comments and that kind of thing. None of that appears. And it's okay. It shouldn't appear here. I agree. But then if this is to be a comprehensive transcript of what went on, it's not there. There's a way for us to handle that. And I think we've talked about that before. Minutes means minute. We cut it down to what the action is and with a reference to the tape that we have here, that if anyone would like to see, exactly what went on, what's further information, they would find it there. This becomes an official document. State Board of Accounts looks at it
Yep.
when they come in to audit, et cetera, et cetera. So if we're going to be comprehensive, then it needs to be comprehensive. Or if we can't do that because of personalities that are involved or whatever it happens to be, then let's get it down to actionable items with a reference. Please see tape from so-and-so available at indiana.gov, whatever it happens to be. So, but anyway, if we are to take a motion on these, then my recommendation is that until we can resolve this, either make it truly comprehensive or decide we're going to do something else with it. I'd like to see it tabled because this is not an accurate depiction of what went on. So,
Does anybody else have comments related to that? Will support his view? My thoughts are the meeting minutes. I think they're very somewhat concise to what we discussed on ordinance. You know, we reviewed, made motions, then we moved the written commitment, reviewed, made a motion, and then we went into our rules and procedures. I think it fairly reflects the actions we took as we moved from page to page. Yes, they can go back to the tape and see what was actually said because those are now records. If something more in detail. But I personally feel, yes, before it did seem to drag on a little bit through the solar thing where it was really detailed, but it also showed reflection of the public input, which was good, I thought. I think these personally look good to me. So
what about the other comments that were made? For example, I'm very upset that Mr. Atkins was called a liar twice. And if we're going to do these minutes, that has to be there too. I say that it shouldn't be there and that, we don't take just what we wanted to say or we'll put in the things that we think are reflective of us in a positive way and leave out the other kinds of things. I am concerned as a representative here that we can have one of our colleagues sitting here and be called a liar, and there was no response from any of us, saying, hey, that's inappropriate. Please refrain from that kind of language, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, Randy, I apologize to you. I am sorry. I should have stood up and yelled from here to high heaven and probably left, but there would have been applause if I did that. But nonetheless,
Well, let's hope not, Bobby. I think you bring a lot of experience and wisdom to this commission, and I think we would, as members, we would be fools not to give consideration to the comment that you have.
And I'll apologize to Mr. Atkins too. I wasn't calling him a liar. I was directing to the comment or the statement that you made would make him a liar.
that's not what you said. You said Randy is a liar.
I said it in
Twice.
Yeah, and he explained. He explained.
I think, Ryan, it could be, it was probably inappropriate.
Yeah, I agree.
What was said. Unfortunately, as a past school administrator, some of that stuff, even though it's not right, you kind of, like a duck in water, you let it go off your back, but that doesn't make it right.
Right.
I didn't appreciate it. And I would hope that, we can refrain from that in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
So
Bob.
you have a motion you want to table. Is that what you,
Yes, I would make that.
Is there a
motion. Can we
second?
Please table and review this.
is there a
Be
second?
happy to work with Ryan.
Is there a second?
I'll second that because I agree with what Bob's saying. We can't be picking and choosing if we're going to have this kind of thorough dialogue recorded, then, whose discretionary decision is it as to what's in and what's not?
The office is in charge of making minutes. We approve the minutes. If we have a problem with the minutes, we make adjustments and they adjust it accordingly and then we approve it. So that's why I'm saying, where's the problem in this particular minutes right here that should be addressed? So we actually have a motion and a second. Call the roll to see if we want to table the minutes for tonight.
Atkins.
Yes.
Bothwell.
Yes.
Royals.
Nay.
Cuddle.
Yes.
Hicks.
I have to sustain. I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Hunt.
Yes.
Nevers.
Yes.
Knuckles.
No.
Pearson.
Yes.
Todd.
Abstain. I wasn't here either.
Wright.
No.
6 yeses.
6 yesterday. That's not a. What do we need for a?
7.
I'll say no. The motion fails.
I'd
So now
like
we
to
ma-
make a motion to approve the minutes, please. As written.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
So, okay, we have a motion and second. Was that you, Brian? No. Oh, David, okay. Then we have discussion.
Yes, under, staff present, under 2, Attorney David Blickfield actually was here to be a WebEx the month before,
Okay.
and he was actually here. Approved these minutes.
So that was not a hologram we saw over there? Okay.
He only wishes.
All right.
I have a point of order, if I could, please. Our president only votes in what cases? To make a tie, break a tie? What is it, Mr. Glickfield, under Robert rules?
I think it's in the rules, and I think it's to, I just read that in the DCA rules earlier today, and I'm betting it's in there somewhere. If I have some time, I could probably find it. But if it parallels what the BCA does, it is to decide a vote, if the vote's needed, to decide whether it be to, if not enough votes for the, if there's,
It's to make a majority.
majority. It's the easiest way to say it.
Okay.
Are you certain of that?
But I don't think his vote affected. what-
No, because even if I didn't vote, it would have lacked for lack of majority, right?
Because it's, I think it's in these rules, and I have not found that yet.
It did make a difference in the last time that we approved minutes. Last month. We had several abstentions, of which I was one because I wasn't here. And it took your vote
Make it
to
happen.
put it over the top, to make a majority, wasn't to break a tie or make a tie. So I don't know. We might want to check that point, just so we know for sure.
So I have no other corrections. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented with the minor adjustment under number 2. Call the roll.
Atkins.
No.
Bothwell.
No?
Royals.
Yep.
Cuddle.
Nope.
Hicks.
Sustain.
Hunt.
Yes.
Nevers.
No.
Knuckles.
Yes.
Pearson.
No.
Todd.
Abstain.
Wright.
Yes.
4 yeses.
4 yeses. And I guess we will be carrying them on to the next meeting. All right, moving on to the next business. We have no public hearings tonight. Our next report up would be rules and procedures. Would we want to hear from staff report before we get into there? Ryan, if you want to give us a quick staff report so we don't miss that out on the end.
Yeah, I had a couple of things I wanted to note. One that we're able to get, and I've sent emails out on most of this. We were able to get Grace to a full-time position starting next year for the code enforcement secretary position.
Good.
You got a unanimous decision from the council, so that is incredible. I sent a letter out for the tech advisory committee to try to get them together in January to at least kind of. Technical advisory committee has been around for 20 some years and I don't know that they've ever met. Everyone that I've talked to that's been around kind of that long, like Mr. Todd, they are on the technical committee, but have never met. So I would like to at least get them together once in January and kind of go over when they meet. That would be for subdivision plats, replats, wind or solar. The technical review committee is involved in that as far as making sure that all parts of the application are completed.
Right. And I know there's some timelines and standards that have to be met if there's an application. So
Yes,
just trying to be proactive so we're ready if and when something happens.
If it is turned in, you have to meet in the first 30 days.
So what is their part in that? They would make recommendations to you, to us?
Yeah, we'll just use the example of solar since that's the most. For the most part, technical review committee, development comes to area plan office. For the technical review committee, I would be handing drainage plan to the drainage board. Any health department to the health department. So on road use agreement to, we have a list of surveyor and or drainage board, highway superintendent, a member from the legislative body, a member from the fiscal body, a member from soil and water, health department, emergency management. So pretty much anyone who's got a part in that, we'll take their part back. They go back, they discuss it until they're okay with it. Then they would bring it back to the technical review committee. The technical review committee basically says, okay, this application is complete. We would then at that point certify it and bring it to the area plan commission. And then the area plan commission, once I bring that to you, you've got 60 days to get it to a public hearing. So we're trying to make sure that everything's in order, in place, that, EMA is good with the emergency plan. Road use agreements okay by the highway department. Commissioners will have some approvals and some of that. And then it comes to you guys to get it, to talk about it, get it to a public hearing, and then recommend forward.
I understand, some people like drainage board definitely would go, Mr. Dodds, et cetera. But then there are representatives from fiscal body, from the commissioners, et cetera. Have they been established? Who is it that appoints them? Or do they know? Have we contacted, for example, the commissioners for them?
This is a letter I sent out to everyone to, hey, start thinking about it. I'd like to meet in January.
Each one of those groups, and they would be ready then to make their appointments
Right,
to this. Okay.
right.
Do those appointments need to be from somebody that is sitting as, for example, let's use Steve as a sitting commissioner? Does it need to be a sitting commissioner that they appoint, or can it be just anybody?
The way we've got it down is a representative from.
So again, clarify what you're saying, then it has to be a commissioner representing the commissioners.
Right.
Just-
Or if, if they're putting it in the elementary school in Jonesboro, it would be from that legislative body.
Okay, so Jonesboro would have an appointment, and it has to be a city council member
Town board.
or town
Here,
board, whatever,
city-
that's city
city,
council.
right.
Yeah, okay, so it'll be, in their case, we'll have a commissioner on the technical things, we'll have somebody from the county council, Mr. Hicks, or somebody, some members. Okay, all right, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is, I'd like to get them together so we can sit down and here's what we're doing, as opposed to something walking in, setting it on my desk and saying, oh crap, we've got 30 days to get us all together. You need to start figuring out who's doing what. So that's just my hope. On the comp plan, I got an email this morning from Mr. Fine Peter. Income surveys did come back. We did get approved for the Okra grants, which not only opens us up for the comprehensive plan, but there are several other grants that it opens us up for also. He's going to come in this week and kind of get over, the rest of that for what is the next step. Things that we need to be looking at doing, we've got to put together, he's asking for a 3 to 5 member scoring committee for when we send out our RFQ, isn't it?
Request for proposal.
Yeah. So we need to get together a 3 to 5 committee for that. The other thing I would like to do with him is get all of us set down together just to identify roles. I think if we go through Indiana code, it says that the comprehensive plan comes to the area plan commission. And basically, just like anything else, we get proposed up to the commissioners. When we were talking to them earlier in the beginning, as they were putting this stuff together, it was commissioners. And I kept thinking, hey, we're in here somewhere. It's supposed to come through us. So I would like to sit down with Bill Walters and Mr. Kleinpeter and just, okay, let's identify who's doing what.
Okay, would that be something we could do at the next meeting? Or do you want us as a whole discussing that?
Yeah, I would like to just identify roles so we don't get halfway in it and not that they doing it, we're not doing it and. And he's willing to do that, but he's, like I said, he's gonna call me this week. To kind of, here's the next step.
I think the more we know what we're actually doing would be
Right.
helpful.
Also, we had a meeting with Mayor McNutt today, and he said that they have been Jonesboro since even back when Bob Hiley was here, have had a fund that they've been adding to for unsafe structures. And all he needed from us was an invoice, and he would send it over for $20,000 for unsafe structures. He said basically as much as we've assisted them, they wanted to give something back to us.
Sounds good.
So that was kind of out of the blue.
Can I ask about that? I think in the email, and by the way, congratulations on the relationship that you've established there and their generosity. I know when we met with Nicole, that was when we set up we went to the meeting. Mr. Reedy asked me to go. And you and I sit with the county council, and we found out at that meeting that we had commitments made for, I don't know, about 11, 12 demolitions there. We did, at that point, had no money really to work with. And I think if I remember right, that Jonesboro was offering $1,500, which, as all of us should know, it takes about $10,000 for a single demolition. And so the $1,500 is great, but it's not really going to touch very much. Had no idea, this has only been, a couple of years ago.
Almost.
When we sit down. I had no idea there was this kind of money that had been put back, and it was not forthcoming at that time. What has happened in Jonesboro as a result, in fact, at that time, this was actually before your time, Ryan. You were, it's just after Mr. Strange had left. And he had made a commitment to Jonesboro for 11 or 12 demolitions without really talking with us about that. And we had no money to work with. So anyway, we worked with that, set up a priority of how structures should come down. We talked about it being on a safety issue.
Yes.
The most dangerous should come down first, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, we are just now completing the work in Jonesboro. And I know that, they're happy about that. They should be, and so on. The county council has made that possible for us. And the highway department are the ones that made it possible for us. Mr. White has offered their services that has cut our cost down about 50%. So we're into it for about 5,000 instead of 10,000. I would make the recommendation for our consideration at this point in time. In our email that we got today from Ryan, he said that we currently have $42,000, approximately 41,900 and some. And that as of January the 1st, we have been approved for another 50,000 in the unsafe structures fund. So that is a very comfortable kind of thing. So thank you, County Council, for, doing that, helping us there. And Dave's not here, but the Highway Department also. So I would think this additional $20,000, I'd like to see us give 10,000 of that. We don't need it actually at this point in time. There were times that would have been desperately, we really need it. Right now, we don't need it as much as putting it back to the county council that are already very good and to the highway department. So I'd like to see us consider this donation that Jonesboro is giving us. I'd like to see it be split between the highway department and the county council.
We do have the issue we would have with that. With what we've got right now with court orders that just went through, we've got 401 Main Street Jonesboro, and we've got 435 Main Street Jonesboro that we have court orders to knock down.
Okay.
They're both too big for the highway department to handle, so we're gonna have to bid those out. Having to bid those out are gonna put us around $80,000 to $100,000 for each building. So it seems like
We
we've got.
feel like we may need that 20.
It seems like we've got a lot of money. My hope is, one, we've only got 6 structures down this year so far. That's because of earlier this year. I'd like to see these guys get some momentum going and maybe come back to the council with that.
If that's accurate, that'd be fine. If at the end of this coming year, we still have surplus, then I suggest that we give our thanks to the highway department who gets absolutely nothing. And to try to thank the council for their wonderful support that we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. Okay, just a thought.
Anything else, Ryan?
The only other thing I had was just update on software. We've got 4 or 5 contractors actually using it now. We keep getting through it, fine tuning. Nicole has been using it for all of her scheduling. She's went from an hour and a half to put a schedule together in the morning to.
Probably about a half an hour, give or take. Of course, Katie helps a lot too.
But I mean,
Don't put it all on me.
it's kind of one of those, when she brings it up, she's got her schedule and she's got a map. So they're instantly side by side to put stuff in order. So I mean, it has greatly reduced our start time. We've had a couple of contractors that have used it.
All right.
It takes a little bit to get used to, but we're again fine tuning.
All right.
So far, so good.
All right.
Haven't had any major issues.
Thank you.
Chuck, I've got 3 questions in regard to the report that Ryan just gave. I didn't attend the county council meeting where Grace was made full-time. Did we surrender some funding for that? Because I thought we had enough money there for a second inspection person. Building inspection. Is that a trade-off of money?
The county council, when we went in to ask them for help, had given us a second building inspector position. So that we could go fully staffed. We have another building inspector position that's covering Aaron right now. At the end of the year, that falls off.
Okay, so we didn't really trade that for Grace going full-time, because the reason I share this, with the number of inspections that appears that we're behind on, I think if they're the way that we can land a second building inspector to get some of those off of the list, I think that'd be a great move for us. And we've had that discussion
Oh,
before.
I'd love that too.
Okay,
But again, the county council has been so great that they have given us everything we've asked for. I mean, literally almost doubling our budget in the last 3 to 4 years.
okay,
So it's hard to go in and ask for more and more and more, even though.
okay. So if the Aaron situation isn't resolved by the end of this year, would we assume then that is going to carry over into the next year?
I believe,
I thought maybe at the end of this year in
I think
January.
that's the way they're intending
Yeah.
at the end of this year, that
So
funding.
we would need to go back and request,
If they
for
need
that to
another
be-
part- Yeah.
okay,
If
I'd
they
be
want
willing to
department
do that.
growth, then they might do that.
Yeah,
Until
I'd
they
be
get caught
happy to bring that to the council. If we could reserve some more funding for the potential of another building inspector to get us out of this hole that seems to create issues for us on a pretty regular basis.
Right.
Okay. Second thing, application in regard to solar. I've gone back and done some research from actions that we took last year. And on 10/3/22 of last year, we voted 7-3 to suspend receiving applications. But then it was clarified that the grounds for that really didn't take place. So we came back on 11/7/22 with a 10 yes and 1 abstain to approve the application to be reviewed and approved by this commission before it's issued to a solar company.
Right.
Okay, the thing that concerns me about that and is whenever we were going over the rules and procedure, I think I said, Brian, what happens if the solar company gave us because we were talking about some of the concerns that we had in regard to, fees not being high enough, some other things like that. And you said, well, we'd have to accept it. Well, that makes me nervous.
Well, we have to accept why.
We would have to accept the application. And I'm thinking, we haven't approved an application, so how could we accept an application?
That's Indiana code. I have to look at it and deem if it's necessary, and then code would call me to issue a permit in a timely fashion. And that's kind of our technical review committee, that's what they're doing. They would basically take that application and they would put it through the ringer for each department before we ever get it to the area plan commission. I mean, we wouldn't issue a permit for that until it got approved all the way through.
Okay, but that's not addressing my concern. My concern is, I believe, and David, you can help me with this, is it not the area plan's role to provide an application for a solar company if they were asking for one?
It's in the ordinance.
The
ordinance
application
actually
is in the
involves
ordinance.
The
It
application,
was part of the building permit process.
yeah.
Okay. But I don't know that the application should be in the ordinance. I think it's the area planning commission's responsibility to have the application. Is that not?
The way I understand, the ordinance spells out everything that they have to do related to all these different areas that have to get approved. So they have to submit documentation for each area. The technical review people take it back and review and make adjustments or ask for or require adjustments before it comes back to technical review before we even see it.
I mean, our job is to make sure it is a complete application before it's handed to you.
So who develops this complete application that they are to give to us?
That basically their development meets the ordinance.
The development meets the ordinance.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna have to process that because I don't know that I agree totally with that. Okay. Then the second thing, you brought up development plan. It was mentioned in the, November, October, September meeting, when the commissioners approved the ordinance, which, there's some questions I'll have later about that. But there was a point of order made in regard to, whether there was something in that ordinance that met Indiana code. And that was denied. But in the discussion that Mr. Bardsley and Mr. Wright had, that was brought up, and Mr. Bardsley's response was, if it's not legal, then it doesn't apply. And I'm thinking, if it's in the ordinance and it's not legal, then it shouldn't be there. Not that it doesn't apply. It was in regard, I think the reference was anything that's in the ordinance that isn't legal, even though it's there, doesn't apply. I mean, I listened to it
The problem you run into is Indiana does not have a mandatory solar ordinance. They have a voluntary solar ordinance.
Okay,
The trouble you run into is how can you say it's not legal if it's not already mandated by the state? If that makes sense.
okay, but my concern is, is it appropriate to have illegal things in our ordinance? I mean, we're working through rules and procedure and BZA and area plan to make sure that what we have in there is to Indiana code and is legal. But yet we potentially have an ordinance that has content that's not legal?
Not sure what you're referring to.
Yeah.
You're looking at me, so I'm gonna respond.
Okay.
Well, I say that because, you know, you guys were the ones who approved the ordinance, which meant that it should have met your approval.
And with all the documentation on the lawyers that we've talked to statewide, our attorney and things, it's meant every possible thing that needs to be legal. And I guess I would refer back to, I know you went in front of the county council to ask for money to do a study to see if the ordinance was legal or not. And we haven't heard anything back from that, so. And I think Mr. Hicks and I'm sorry, Holding, was paying for that. I don't know, Mr. Hicks, did you get a bill for that? You did? Okay. And so is there any findings there? I mean, we would love to know. I mean,
Okay.
that would be something that we'd like to know.
How would you recommend that information be given to you if an event that, I mean, if
I think you
it's a
bring it-
private document since
I
it
think
was
you bring
right
it
on
into a
tape?
commissioners meeting and talk to the commissioners.
Okay. Okay.
And then we'd take a look at that, and then we'd want to get some other attorneys, because I know the attorney that's doing this, and it's a private attorney from someone that sits on a board representing, that's been more or less doing the ordinance that was drafted, that you all approved to send to the commissioners. And it's the same attorney that was trying to get us a 1,320-foot setback in order to say, we don't want solar in Grant County. And so that, I mean, that's the problem. So yeah, so we would entertain the thought of anything that's in there illegal. We would sure take a look at it. We don't want anything in there illegal.
Okay.
I mean, if you think we do, we don't.
Well, and Steve, as an area planning commission member at that time in which that ordinance was approved by you guys, my hope was that we could have discussed some amendments rather than that draft 4 just be substituted for the draft 7, which the area planning commission, approved and sent to you, because I think there was, if I'm not mistaken, there is the procedure for amendments to occur, either initiated by area plan or initiated by commissioner.
And I believe that was the process that we did. And again, this is getting into.
Yeah, this is going right.
But I would like.
I think we need to have this discussion. There's 5 members of this commission that were not part of that dialogue. And I think we're going to be, solar's coming, I've got some other things to share here in the fact that there's an Indiana code 32-31-2, chapter 2, that says that any land lease for more than 3 years, and you may know this, has to be filed at the recorder's office. So, there's been some efforts made by some community members to research that at the recorder's office. And it's been found that there's over 4,000 acres that are under lease in Grant County, and at least 4 identified different locations. And that there's 23 landowners who have filed, who have received funding from the solar company to sign that lease. And there's about 450 people that are going to be impacted by these potential solar developments that probably have no idea that the solar's coming in their area. And that concerns me greatly as a representative of the people of Grant County. And I would hope that it would concern anybody sitting around this table for those individuals. I met a couple from Van Buren who just bought a house in Van Buren, didn't have any knowledge that solar was going to be across from their house. And would they have done that if they knew solar was coming? Absolutely not. I know for a fact, based on some of the information that was shared with me about these landowners who leased this ground, that one particular individual from Delaware County who leased his farm, his daughter was living at the farmhouse of that farm. Her house is up for sale. Now, that concerns me, people, that we're gonna have to deal with this at some point. And I don't wanna keep kicking, I hate to be the guy that keeps stirring the pot here, but we just can't keep kicking this under the rug. At some point, this is gonna get real for us.
What are you suggesting? That we be more transparent with that information, make sure that, it's out there so that everybody in Grant County is aware of, these places or not?
I say, if
What
you're
you think?
somebody, would you wanna know? I mean, I don't know whose role or responsibility it is in Grant County to notify these landowners or these homeowners.
I
That
guess
this is
what
gonna happen. I don't know whose responsibility, it is, but it concerns me.
Well, let's think about that for a moment. If we are going to have a public hearing for an exception, or we're going to have, something that pertains to us, the procedure then is that we notify the adjacent landowners of the public hearing and that sort of thing, correct? Could we not use the same kind of procedure that as these things are recorded, that the adjacent landowners then are sent a note, a letter, a posting of some sort, that this land, this area, is under lease to the soil, just as a point of information, so that everybody that might be affected at least has been notified. And could we not do that through, through our office? I presume.
I don't see where, we don't have time to be looking at thousands of pieces of property in the county to see who owns what.
You have a better suggestion?
And we currently have zero development in. Will we get a map? Probably. I don't know, is it for us to?
Yeah.
Call, I mean,
I'm just trying to, find a way, and who would it be? And I would think we'd be in the driver's seat to be able to accomplish that.
for a public
So,
hearing, there's 30 tracts of land, we're gonna be telling a lot of people already. And everyone they touch.
Anyway,
I mean,
I'm just-
I don't, who else knew that these solar leases were filed in the recorder's office? Is there anybody in this room that knew that? That Indiana code, blah, 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 says that it has to be filed?
If I may, I've got the code pulled up and I was looking at it because what you said struck me. It basically says under Indiana code, and I think you cited 323122.
3231-2, chapter 2.
Yeah, under paragraph B, which is I think what you're referring to, if a lease for a period longer than 3 years is not recorded within 40 days after its execution, the lease is void against any subsequent purchaser, lessor, or mortgagee who acquires the real estate in good faith for valuable consideration. I think what that statute is saying is that if you don't record that within 45 days, if somebody purchases that property later, that lease is void. That's what the statute says. That's what it pertains to. It doesn't
Solar
necessarily,
companies are filing them for some reason.
well, they're filing them because if somebody buys the land later, they're on notice that lease runs with the land. That's
Okay.
why they're doing it.
Okay,
That's
so
what the
that's why they're
statute
being
says.
filed.
That's exactly.
Okay.
I hope that clarifies.
So that would be the only knowledge that anybody would have, that that's what land's been leased.
At this point, yeah, that's the whole purpose of the recording of property, whatever type of property, deeds, leases, whatever, is to give public notice that that's happened. Now, of course, nobody goes to the recorder's office and, like you pointed out, and actually knows that, but legally, that's how it's done.
Okay,
I hope that helps.
it does. Thank you. I think I knew that, but I think my concern was is
Sure.
they're filing them.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay,
so
All right,
did we notify?
thank you for your time.
While you're at it, and you're doing this, is there anything that you think we should do to make it more transparent so that the people know or not? No, I would
Well,
like.
I'm not convinced that we had an adequate and sufficient public hearing for the draft that is now law. I mean, as I reviewed, going back to make sure that when I speak, I'm speaking with what I feel is confident information. I also know that there was some findings of fact that Commissioner Bardsley had issued that said that the ordinance was 90% complete. Now that concerns me, that we have I mean, where's the other 10%? What's the other 10%? I don't know, but
His statement was that they felt it was 90% complete when they gave it to the area plan commission to finish. With Mr. Bardsley's statement.
he thought it was, okay.
When it was presented, they assumed, because we had all department heads that already put their input into it. When we gave it to the area plan commission, it was assumed that it was 90% completed with you guys doing the finishing touches.
Okay. And I'm still concerned about the fees, as we talked about, some of the investigation and professional work that's going to have to be done as this technical committee comes together and starts to develop, go over this development plan. It should not be the taxpayers of Grant County's burden to pay for those fees. That should be the solar company. I would hope that, you guys would be concerned about that as well, that
We are.
coming out of.
And we would start with 10,000. So any engineering or anything like that, your application would be 10,000. And then beyond that, it's 1,000 per megawatt. So if we have a 150 megawatt farm come in, they're gonna hand us $150,000 to cover.
But what if it doesn't? Is there a clause in there that says in the event that the expenses associated with this development plan would exceed the established fees, can we ask for more?
No.
No, that concerns me. Why shouldn't it be there? It should
But-
not
but
be the
again,
citizens of Grant County's burden to pay that.
I believe some of that would fall back onto your economic development stuff.
Is it true that economic development money only come in the event that there's a tax abatement?
That's not true.
Okay.
That's all.
They don't, I mean, I'm not the expert on it, but they don't have to have a tax abatement. I mean, they're gonna come in and obviously giving a tax abatement probably will help.
While I'm on a roll, I know, Steve, you're going to accuse me of conflict of interest here because I do own property out in that area. But I think it's the most ludicrous thing that this county is going to consider allowing their only undeveloped intersection of a major interstate go develop to solar panels. I mean, that needs to be changed. It's not because, that's not looking to the future, people, for us to do that. That's high enough for.
So I'm gonna address that. and then we can
Okay,
move on.
and then we need to move on.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this up.
Because this goes on every meeting.
Right.
I always have to defend what we're doing.
Hey, excuse me, but don't forget, we're gonna deal with this. It's coming.
Believe me, I know. Believe me, I know.
And you think the solution is not to have any discussion?
Didn't say that. We've been having discussion now for the whole time that I've been a commissioner. And it seems like it comes up in every meeting from one person, one person. And so I will say this about that land. I checked on that because when you mentioned that, I thought, okay, well, let me dig into that. There's no water sewer there. Gas City's got water sewer running out to I-69. Marion's got water sewer running out to I-69. Is Upland gonna afford to run water and sewer out there to that location? Is the town of Fairmount gonna run water sewer out to that location? So for a big development to come in, they're gonna want water sewer. They really are, no matter what it is, if it's an Amazon or whatever. This is what I've been telling, I went to economic development people, and this is what they're saying. Until there's water and sewer at an intersection like that on 69, they aren't coming. They aren't coming.
And you don't think that possibility will ever
It's
exist?
millions and millions and millions of dollars, plus the treatment of sewer and water. I don't believe it will.
So you're willing to run that risk? On the same basis of the fact that farmers aren't gonna be able to sell their corn because all the ethanol is going, all the corn's going into ethanol. We're all gonna be driving electric cars in 10 years.
All right. We need to move on. I do, if there are issues like the fee structure, we as a body can make a recommendation to the county commissioners that maybe we need to add a caveat plus any extra costs associated with the approval process. we'd have to develop something, and then forward that on to the commissioners for their approval, their consideration, I should say. So we can, that's part of our body. Any ordinance, we can make changes or recommendations to the governing body for that particular ordinance. So if we really think that that's not enough, or we want to put that protection in there, then we need to develop some wordage, like an amendment to the solar ordinance regarding to that particular area. And I think they may entertain that because yes, they don't want to be caught holding the bag, or the county as a whole. So.
Thank you, Chuck.
Mr. Chairman, and we have a comment here.
Generally, that's at the end of the meeting. We do need to try to get some business moving, I think. We are here to move on. Do you have anything out of the attorney's office,
I
Mr.
do not.
Blickfield? Okay,
Well, actually, we did have two. We were talking about the demolition fund. We did get two more of the buildings associated with the first one. I can't remember the address in Jonesboro. So now we have a total of three that we've got demolition for. So Dr. Bothwell was talking about the funds. I would definitely be careful with those because those are major buildings. Those could be
okay,
a little bit more expensive, but we did get the orders for demolition for those.
good. All right. The last meeting, we started reviewing the rules and procedures. We got up and improved up to page 4, or most of page 4, if I recall. Page 2, page 3. I think we left off with the executive committee. Is that where we left off? I don't think we got election of officers. Did we do that?
I got it starting on page 5.
Okay, then maybe my page 5 is
6.3.
6.3. Okay. 6.3 election, 6.3. Okay.
If I could, sir, with the information, I understand, your look, you do want to go on. There is some things that we need to call to one another's attention. And I think Mr. Wright was gone when we completed whatever work it was that we were doing. And there was one item in particular that I think that you need to be aware of. Just about a year ago, in fact, I think maybe it was in the November meeting. And it may have been in an executive session. I can't remember. But you severely chastised this entire group for absences. I think the statement you made at the time is we've had 18 meetings this year and virtually all of you have missed, 3 or more, and even made the statement, Steve, about you want me to take this public? I will. And they frustrated me because we don't have 18 meetings. And this was in November and we had already had 18 meetings and so on. So have you taken a look at the section in here about absences?
I have.
Okay, good. So just so you know, the meetings for which our absences are going to be dealt with, there are 11 for an entire year. It's only regular meetings. Where you got the 18, I don't know, but that didn't apply at that time. I want you to know that, and I want everybody else, because we got chastised pretty hard about that. And it was inaccurate. We didn't really have the right information at the time. And I'm wondering, Mr. Blickfield, I think, has been charged with looking at this. In fact, isn't that what it says? Absences was petitioned by Mr. Blickfield to be edited, define what a regular meeting is and how many of you are allowed to miss regular government meetings. I think our discussion at that meeting, or at this last meeting,
Right.
was that we talked about it's only applies, the penalties or whatever that would be associated with missing meetings would only apply to 11 regular meetings.
Correct, let's go.
Yep.
Okay, and secondarily then, according to Indiana code, it would appear that if you're going to miss and you let someone know that they're reading like COVID. I missed a couple meetings last year because of COVID. But if you were simply to let someone know, then it's like an excused absence that doesn't go against the three. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, what's not in here is who is it that we tell?
I thought it was the,
Yep.
I think it is in there. I thought it said
Doesn't
the
say, it
president.
might, I may have.
Yeah.
It does, says
Yeah.
president, vice president,
Yep.
or executive director.
Okay, it does. Okay, I didn't go on beyond that. So it's the president, the vice president, or the executive director. Okay, so all we need to do in the case of an absence is to let one of those three people know. Okay, all right, good.
That is in there. And then, then if you miss more than three, then the office basically informs the appointing body. And if they want to act on it, they can. If not, it goes nowhere.
Is that
So-
statute?
Yeah, go ahead.
That,
It says 3 consecutive, right?
right.
We're three. Three,
So
you
that's
think, how
three
about
consecutive.
3 of 7?
No,
There was
three
someplace in there
consecutive.
it
That
used
was,
to be
that
three
was one of our old unconforming rules that was established way back when that wasn't legal.
Okay.
It's like I say, we're trying to go by state code here.
Yeah, okay,
It says 3 consecutive regular meetings.
so it's not 3 of 7 anymore, it's 3 in a row. Okay,
Can I
I think that's fine.
do a clarification?
All right.
Because I'll kind of stand on my numbers that I gave because I believe I got with Mr. Malat and took a look at the regularly scheduled meetings. There wasn't any special meetings. And it was over a 16 or 18-month time that I came up with that. And I believe I gave you a copy of that,
Okay,
that you could take a look
what,
at
an
it.
annual?
And
Didn't
so
make that
out of
clear.
those meetings, over half of the membership had missed half of the meetings. And honestly, that's before we got into the solar thing. Now that we've had solar come up, it seems like we've got a pretty full agenda with people coming and doing this. I don't think we've missed a quorum here. There was several quorums that were missed because you didn't have the attendance, and that's the reason we have an office call this every day, that we have a meeting and stuff to make sure that they've got enough for a quorum tonight. So that's the reason I brought up what I did. It was all factual. There's documentation of it, when, who was here. We can go back into the minutes if we need to dig into that. But there was a lot of people that missed. And in fact, I think one person missed 7 in a row. And there was
I
nothing done
can
about it.
attest to that because there was many times that we could not have a meeting or even got there that night and somebody didn't show up and we were not able to have a meeting.
So I was
It
being
got to be
accused-
very frustrating.
So I was being accused of not understanding solar because I had only had a little bit of time to understand it. And yet I had done a deep dive into it. Not only did I do a deep dive into that, I did a deep dive into this board and what's the responsibility, as well as the comprehensive plan, which I'm glad we're now going to be taking a look at. And if that gets people upset, I'm sorry, I'm going to call it out.
Sometimes it's the method that we do that, the chastisement and the threat that you want me to make this public, I will, kind of thing, you know. We can say, hey, guys, it's a way.
I didn't make it public. We just made it public tonight.
Should have been
You just made it public tonight.
a little more.
All right, let's see what we can get accomplished tonight here. So we're not here all night. So we left off at top of page 3, 6. Or top of page 5. 6.3, this would be continuation of election of officers. So 6.3 on, basically election of, so we already got so the red is what we added in, correct? Black was what was there before, red is what was added in. I think the red was added in based on what happened earlier in the year, I think.
We took out the secret ballot.
Right. So the president calls for nominations. Nominations heard. On completion, the request is closed. Nominations closed. Standard roll call when we do a roll call vote. Members must be present or participate through electronics. So once the president's elected, if it's somebody different, the current one steps down, the new one takes over to complete the process for vice president using the same process or similar process. Outcome of the vote should be stated publicly.
May I ask a
And then we added 6. If there's a tie, it continues to the next meeting.
6.5?
6.5.
Once the standard roll has been called and set aside, and a new president's stepped down. If the current president is supervising his own election, I don't know, maybe it's the way we've done it most recently, but I can remember when I was president for several years. The presidency, me, I stepped down and let the vice president that was sitting to conduct the president's election. And then when the new president was elected, then the new president would conduct the election. It's just a matter up here of, is it appropriate for the sitting president to, and he may or may not be a candidate,
Right. He's just calling for nominations.
but why would it not be more proper for someone who is not in the seat that is to be elected to step aside and allow the vice president to do that, and then we go back the other way? The new president then would take over and do it exactly as you have. Just thought, I think it would be, it'd be more proper.
I don't know if I've seen it that way before. You know, in our all town council meetings that we have at the first of the year, president calls for nominations, who wants to be the next year's president of the board. Nominations are taken and votes are taken. That's the way, at least in my town, we do it. I don't know. Jerry, is that how you do it in your town, basically?
There's only 3 of us, so.
Right?
Not a lot to argue about.
It's really not a problem to
No,
do
I
it the other way
I'm
too.
saying, I mean, that would take the president out of it.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd make a motion that we insert wording to that effect. And it has been past practice.
Well, that's how we've done it. Is it the code? Is it something we can adjust, or does the code say that?
I mean, the code just says that you, in the first meeting, will elect president, vice president. Doesn't tell you how you put it.
And if we really go back, we approved page 4 last week. We're on page 5. Page 4, if we approved, which we did, it says here, election of officers at the first regular meeting of each year of the planning commission shall elect the members for our president, vice president. The current elected president shall preside over the election process. So we already voted on that last week, or last meeting.
Yeah, I would also, our rules before that came off of, because that's not a change.
Mhm.
Those were approved 9/8/2014.
Just say that it would be proper for the vice president to take over for the election of the presidency. I'd make a motion that, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. Just something we can sit and argue about, I guess.
So if we make a change here, then we got to go back to something that we approved last meeting.
That's okay. Put it together.
I would hope that at some point, if we have reconsideration about some of this, that we would have the opportunity to change it. Anything that says we can't change it
No.
at any point?
Well,
We're going to approve this, aren't we? Or deny it as it is written? Isn't that our purpose here? Or are we just here to be here?
Do we want to consider moving forward and before we actually put our final stamp on
Well-
it, anybody else at that point has any change they could be considered through the whole document?
we're doing sections, and I would imagine when we go to make a motion to approve, there's other changes that somebody would potentially. But you have a motion that you want to make an adjustment to paragraph 3, or paragraph 6.5.
6.5.
To have the Vice President.
6.5, wherever it is, but it's there.
well, we need to know for motion purposes.
I would just think under 6.5 that we would have, for the office of presidency, the vice president would conduct the election. And for all other offices, the president, newly elected president, which may very well be the sitting president, but he would conduct all other election.
So if we do that there, then we gotta go back and change something we approved last week at 6.2.
That's approved. There's been objections that should have happened then, not now. And since this is not a hobby being here,
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I can second that.
Call the roll.
Atkins,
Yes.
Bothwell,
Yes.
Royals,
no.
Cadell,
No.
Hicks,
Yes.
Hunt,
No.
Nevers,
No.
Knuckles,
No.
Pearson,
No.
Todd,
No.
Wright.
No.
3 yeses. The rest are no's.
So it fails?
8 no's.
Okay, so that fails. Any other discussion going down before we get to 7? All right, number 7, duties of planning commission officers. Planning commission officers. Preside at the meetings.
One thing we probably ought to clarify on that election thing, because it's come up before,
Yes?
is do we have anything in here that talks about how many votes are necessary? You know, we may come up with a vote of 6-5. And if nobody were to get 7, according to state code, we have to have,
It says here
Majority of the
it
members.
says here that you have to, if there's a tie, which would, then it has to go to the next meeting until there's a tie broken or a majority of the members. It would continue the current president until a new majority can be taken. I'm thinking that we have somewhere where we talked about membership and the votes earlier, or is that still to come up?
I don't know.
I'm making meetings.
It probably needs to be there because.
Yeah, I know it's in here somewhere because for taking votes. Order of business agendas. Okay. Public hearings. Because you have to have a majority. You have to, 7?
A majority of the members.
Right, of the membership, yes.
Not just.
That's the way all our votes go.
Sitting number.
That's the way all our votes go. It has to be a majority of the membership.
That's
I
correct.
don't think that would be any difference when we're electing officers.
I agree. And that's the way we have acted. But is there any place in here in our rules? where it
Yeah.
says that?
Yes.
10.2 is your quorum and 10.2.1 is your official action.
So you have to get to.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says that any action by the plan commission is not official unless it is authorized by a majority of the entire membership.
Good. Okay. I just want to make sure we had that in there so we don't have that kind of a problem that we have had in the past.
Okay, so 7.1 talks about if the president's not available, the AEP will step in. If neither one are available, then somebody would be appointed temporarily for that meeting among the people that make it here. Talk about exceptions when there's a special meeting called by 2 or more members of the commission. Those members shall set the agenda for the special meeting. It is their meeting, although they may yield to the president. So any questions on that? 7.2. That can be a tough one to do, I shall tell you. That could be a tough one there. So the president is in charge of trying to keep order within the meeting
Using weapons.
without you, well, okay. 7.3, contracts agreements. Committee, on behalf of the commission, execution of contracts agreements.
Chuck?
Yes.
Most of this, it's mostly the same.
Of what we did
It's just
before.
got moved from the beginning, so
Okay,
that's why I've only got 7 and got it right there,
okay.
because we just moved it from.
So this is what we had in before.
Right.
So basically it is what we currently do. But it's good to review to make sure what we're supposed to be doing or have rights to do.
Question? Now, Ryan? On 7.3, if this is, what's been moved over, why is the first sentence in italic? And the rest of it in the regular font? 7.3. Is that new?
Something about the font.
President.
Where it's kind of like italicized a little bit.
General vision of the official. That'll word for word.
No, he's asking.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're just completely the same. Yeah.
There is no reason
I did that in 2021. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
that this is exactly,
General supervision. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's just moved from 3.2.3 to 7.3.
right, but it is exact.
Any other questions on page 5 before we vote?
Right. We haven't gone all the way down
Well,
to.
7.4 is what the vice president, who's the president and vice president.
I have a question. before
Okay.
We vote on that again. And I'm sorry to dominate all this good stuff. This entire document that we have is much more comprehensive, as I noted at our last meeting. You know, we're including Indiana code, and so on. We are subject to Indiana code. Okay. And we are subject to Grant County code, code book, et cetera. And I noted at the last meeting, you know, what we do on the local level, you know, we are already under Grant County code, we're already under Indiana code. And so we don't really need to have that included. And we had the discussion, you know, every time Indiana code changes, then we got to come back and change. So I still think we probably shouldn't have to do that. What we have done primarily, I think, Brian, is we have included Indiana code. Is the Grant County code also part of this?
Yeah.
If not, how can we vote on this thing? It's incomplete, guys.
This is our rules and procedures. We're trying to follow state code. And yes, we discussed last meeting, why are we elaborating on it? Why did we leave it gray? And the reason why we don't, I think the majority of the people spoke back then, we don't want to leave gray matters where we got to run and check at a later date or another time and come back to next meeting when it's out there in front of us.
And that's fine. If
That's
that's
why
what
we
we're
put
gonna
that-
do we need then to include the other code that we are under automatically? You know, I disagree with the thought, but if that is gonna be our thought, and we're doing this to make it comprehensive and have it in one document, then we need to include the Grant County code that we are also under.
This is our rules and
This will
procedures.
generate text
Yeah.
amendments to the ordinance.
It's our rules and procedures.
Right.
Exactly. So why
This
do
will
we
have a
have
domino effect.
Indiana code in? And why, you know, we don't need to.
Indiana,
But if we're going to have Indiana code, then you gotta also include the Grant County
Indiana
code,
code is-
and it's not been included yet. The portions that apply to.
We had this long discussion prior.
Okay,
From this will generate text amendments to the ordinance. That's the next step. BZA same way. I've got to go through our ordinance. These codes that are in here were already in here. We've just identified them with IC codes, so we know exactly where they are in the book now.
should we not
The
do that
problem was,
also?
half of these were wrong.
Should we not also do that with The other code that we're under,
As soon as we're done with this, I'm diving into that because that is actually,
and then we're gonna add that later to this.
no, I've got to get into that and bring that back to you because that's actually a change in the ordinance. So that has to go through you like any other text amendment would and go up to the commissioners for approval and then out to all the town people. And that's just to get us within the code. So when we're done here, I've got to dive back into this book.
Yeah.
And I've got to make sure that this book matches Indiana code, so that I can get it out and actually make it law in Grant County.
So what it amounts to then is what we're doing is only part done. The Indiana code we got here, and we have looked at our rules and regulations from the past apparently. But we're not done. You know, we're doing this as a final document that this is that, we're all done. And now we've still got the, we got Grant County to approve that.
That
It could
sounds
be
like-
much simpler, guys. Just to acknowledge up front with a statement that we are subject to Indiana code and the Grant County code. And then just deal with our own local kinds of things. Wouldn't that be a much simpler thing to do?
It's actually very nice that it's spelled out specifically, so anybody that comes along can look it up.
I don't disagree, but if you're gonna do it, then you gotta do both. You can't have.
I
one-
think once we get this step done, Bob, he has to go adjust those. That's in a whole different book, a whole different category. It will not be part of this document. This document will force him to do something else in a different set of documents.
We have to
And
approve that.
remember, you've got to have in the state of Indiana, you have to have a comprehensive plan prior to having an ordinance. We have a comprehensive plan, getting ready to go through. We've got to rewrite half of it. I mean, not just building codes, not just our rules, but in planning and zoning, it does not meet.
Yeah.
Okay, we're trying to do the easy one first, the 2-month one first, before we get into the one that's going to take us a year.
We don't need to do the Indiana code and or that one. We just need to say we are subject to, and if there are changes that Grant County codes need.
We've had enough discussion on this. We've had, excuse
I
me.
don't think we've had.
We've talked about this at previous meetings, and the majority of at this time decided we wanted to go this route, to spell out, to have it in front of us, in the public, whoever reads it, so that we have it right in front of us. And now we're rehashing it again.
I can't support this because it's incomplete. I'm sorry.
This document is
Wish I
rules and procedures that we need to accomplish to trigger other things down the line. If we wait to try to get every piece of this, the comprehensive plan, the rules of the ordinance book there, we'll never get done. We got to do it in bits and pieces. We set the motion in place. We're working on this.
Just so it's
We got
understood,
funding in to get a comprehensive plan done.
then it's understood that this is not the final draft of our rules and regulations. That
This will be our rules and procedures. It's one piece of many documents. This is how we govern, how we run.
I've tried. Go ahead.
All right, 7.4. Did anybody have any questions or concerns with 7.4? This is just, the black ink is just carrying over what was in our original or the most current rules and procedures.
Now, your difference here is our book said duties of officers. I made it into duties of plan commission officers. But then where it breaks off to go 3.3.1, where it breaks almost down to staff, I put it to staff as number 8.
Number 8. But we're only dealing with page 7, which mainly is 6.3 to 6.7 and 7.1 to 7.4, which carries a little bit on to the next page. Any other discussions on page 5 before we take a motion to approve on what we got in page 5? Take a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Royal has made a motion. We have a second. Brian Hunt, second. Call the roll. This is for page 5.
Atkins?
Yes.
Boswell?
It's incomplete, no.
Royals,
Yes.
Caudell,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Nevers,
Yes.
Knuckles,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
passed.
Okay, moving on, page 6. Under 8, executive director and plan commission staff. So remember, the black was what was there, red was added. That's coming from state code.
Are these things that we've added from state code, Ryan, are they exact word for word from the state code?
I believe so.
Yeah. So I guess spelling out what's in the red, what the executive shall do is propose annual planning operation of the planning department, administrative plan as approved by the commission, supervise the general administration of the planning department, keep records and of the planning department responsible for the custody of preserve all paper and documents of the planning department. I know this was a discussion when we were in our meetings back in July. The director shall appoint and dismiss employees of the planning department according to standards, qualification fixed by the commission and without regard to political affiliation.
So that was a change to actual text. Before it said with the approval of the commission that I would hire and dismiss. We made that distinction that as far as the employees go, I hire and dismiss.
I know we talked about that. I remember Randy, Ryan, I think we talked about it extensively. And you said, why, Ryan, would you want off all that responsibility? But I think we kind of led towards this wording.
This was me and David, attorney and director.
Right. And we would, as the commission, we have more control over your position and your position.
Is that Indiana code that he does not require the commission's action to hire and fire?
Say that one more time.
Is it in Indiana code that the executive director, without the action of the area planning commission, can hire and fire staff?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
It basically 8.2.5,
I will look it up though.
it says with the approval of the commission. And then it goes into shall appoint. So
What was the code section?
36-7-4-312.
-7-4
-312.
dash. Oh, it's right there. Okay, 312. Gotcha.
So, okay, would that action have to require every hire or fire that you made, or is that a general action that would blanket?
We talked about if I needed to hire a permits clerk instead of, because here in the past, I mean, I've had to go a month and a half, 2 months before I could bring someone in to get approval here. We're saying that I can hire my staff. If we ever get to a point that I'm going to fire someone, I'm going to bring it to us anyway. So I mean, it's not going to be something you're gone and I'll tell you guys later.
I'll read the code section to answer your question if you don't mind.
Please.
It says, basically, it's a list of items. Section 312, under the direction of the Area Plan Commission, the executive director shall, 5, subparagraph 5, subject to the approval of the commission, appoint and remove the employees of the planning department according to standards and qualifications fixed by the commission and without regard to political affiliation.
Okay, so I guess the question is that the action of the area planning commission before the executive director's action?
Whatever he does, according to the way I read this, is subject to your approval.
Right.
So you have to approve it.
We'd have to approve it prior to
Well,
person being.
I mean, I would make an action without your approval because you have to approve it.
Okay.
Is
That's
that-
what Ryan understands. I don't know that Ryan understands it that way.
Yeah, that's what the statute.
I
that's what
think
the
he
code-
understands that he can
Yeah.
do that without necessarily having our action.
Yeah, that's not what the code says. I just read the code.
So if they approve me to do hiring and firing of the staff,
More like a recommendation.
under the correction.
Ryan, I read it as subject to the approval of the commission, appoint and remove the employees of the planning department. I think what you're trying to say is that's a blanket thing that they could give you. That I don't read it that way. I read it as you individually would bring it to them for their approval. That's how I would read it.
Good.
I understand how could interpret it. I understand it can be interpreted either way.
It's.
And I know I made a
The concern
motion
in
for
it
you
is-
to assign your staff how you chose a few meetings back. But I hope that wasn't interpreted as making decisions about hiring and firing without this commission's approval. That's the way I read the code.
Well,
Randy, think about this from his point of view, and it's happened to him a couple times. And there's been debates that go back to the first time that you were questioned about this was Bob Monroe. Bob Monroe's no longer with us. Second time it happened, and say that first time, and Bob Monroe said, no, wait a minute, you can't do that. And you had already hired Aaron at the time. And you felt like that you could do that.
I felt like you guys told me as the building inspector should have
And
did.
you talked about it. And I made the motion then that we hire, you introduced Aaron after you hired him and you started him and he was getting paid and so on. And I made the motion to cover you in that we actually approve the hiring that you had done and make it retroactive back to the date that you put him to work. But there was a very strong sentiment here among the group that, hey, let's not do that again. And when I think it was Kate. It was either Kate or Grace. So it was a Grace. Okay, you did the same thing again. And by that time, we'd gotten rid of Bob. And I said, well, hey, you'll recall that I made the motion to cover that. Again, you recall that. We talked about it. And you said at that time, yeah, I've learned my lesson.
all right.
Now here we are
So
fighting it
Well,
again.
I do, I
Could
was,
we not?
That was an addition of a new person.
Yeah.
So you guys had already okayed me to hire.
all right.
For you to hire, but for you to, anyway, the bottom line, just a minute, Chuck.
Wait a minute. We've had enough discussion on this. We understand.
I'm trying to help here. Just hold on a second, let's ask.
I said, call to order, call to order.
Call to order?
Yes.
I'm talking here with this
Well,
guy.
you're talking, you should be
Can I
talking to
help with
us.
this, please?
No.
If Ryan needs to get somebody and needs to get them on board before we have a meeting, then can we have an agreement that he talks to the president, whoever it is, and the president then acting on our behalf can say, hey, go ahead with that and we'll get full approval at the next meeting. So that he is covered in what he needs. He's got a place to go when we are not here. Either that or he can call the executive committee together.
That was gonna be my question,
Yeah.
Bob. Would
So let's do the
executive
executive
have the
committee
power to
thing.
Do that.
So that it
in
would help
emergency.
cover him and any of the conflicts that we've already had come up with this.
My recommendation, Mr. Glickfield, can you look at this when you have more time to really thoroughly review it?
Sure.
Because what I see on here, and I don't know if it's properly presented, because the red should be showing what's in state code. The way I understand it, the executive director shall be designated staff, executive of the staff. The director shall delegate authority to perform administrative actions in all cases except for final action of the planning commission is required. And that's where you get your IC code that you just looked up. 8.2, under the direction of the area planning commission, the executive director shall. So under the direction of the planning commission, which is us, then you skip down, the director shall appoint and dismiss employees of the planning department according to standards and qualification. So if we gave direction, are we giving direction that he can do that? But I know when originally you said no, but if you can look at that.
I'll just read the code again.
Okay.
And just everyone contemplate it. Section 312, under the direction of the Area Plan Commission, the executive director shall, skip to subparagraph 5, subject to the approval of the commission, appoint and remove the employees of the planning department according to the standards and qualifications fixed by the commission and without regard to.
So that is what's written on the books. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's
so then that,
pretty self-evident.
okay,
Yeah,
so we need to go back and tweak this a little bit here.
but
Yeah, that does not say, 8.2.5 does not say what Indiana Code 36.
So they're in conflict.
4-3.12, paragraph 5 says.
So they're in conflict.
Mr. Clickfield,
Yes, sir.
would it be feasible to be able to help Ryan in this situation? That we add in here, that in an emergency situation, and personnel needs to be, employed or whatever, that with the permission of the president, that he can move forward. For example, it's really hard, Ryan, let's say that we are at the end of June, we have a vacancy and we don't meet in July.
I would just call a special meeting.
So.
That's what I would do. That's how I would handle it.
All right.
I would just call a special
So
meeting.
you don't want to give him the latitude to.
I don't think the
Call-
code, honestly, I
allows it.
don't think the code
Yeah,
allows
wouldn't
it.
support.
I just
Okay.
don't think the code allows
All
it.
right.
Yes, Steve.
He needs to get approval before he actually hires.
That's the way I read it.
Okay.
Hate to bring up a sore subject, but this might be the place to also take a look. Counselor, we had a situation where we had an employee that did something and did not fall within the guidelines of our employees through the handbook.
Right.
Is that something that needs to be in this? How would you take a look at that? Would you agree we need to kind of address that?
That's what I was
Yeah,
talking about. a
Right,
little
the
bit
county
ago.
handbook here, or when they
The
hire
county
in through the
handbook.
town.
County
The
handbook.
county
yeah.
handbook.
I think it's an
right?
excellent idea to
Be
have
a
that.
re-
language.
It really needs to be in there,
Yeah.
whether it's us or on.
Reference to it.
On the road, with other people sitting around this table
That's what
coming
I'm
up
saying.
with the same problem and stuff. We really, to me, he's a county employee.
Right.
And so if the handbook, has reprimands or whatever for that employee, he should be treated like any other county employee, or else we, as a county, take a look at a lawsuit, I think. I truly believe that. At least that's the way we were kind of leaning.
I don't see any issue with putting that language in, but it still can't be in conflict with the state statute.
Correct. But I think we should have something in there, like I say, way past us, right? I mean,
Simple thing to do, Steve,
Sure.
is to say that we are subject to Indiana code and the
Grant County handbook,
county handbook.
there's
And
no handbook.
do not put all that stuff, if we are subject, we are tied to that. And then we just deal with
That's in here.
additional.
It is in the ordinance that they will comply to all county.
Yeah.
It's in here.
Oh, it's okay.
So if we just adopt that as part of our,
No.
it's so,
So where did we have the problem with this problem that we had?
There was a question on whether or not we had to follow, area plan had to follow the county code book. It states in here that we will. That hadn't been brought to light yet.
Okay.
So it was,
While we were in that mess right here, I just thought it'd be something.
reason I think.
Yep.
Where would
Yep.
that fit in here?
What I would suggest doing, if you don't mind me saying, according to the standards and qualifications fixed by the commission and in accordance with the county employee handbook.
And that,
I'm under 8.25. The director shall appoint and dismiss you. Of course, that language
Cross that language, yeah.
probably will be changed.
Yeah.
But I'm just pointing to the place.
Put it in there somehow.
According to the standards and qualifications, which this part is of the statute fixed by the commission and in accordance with the county employee handbook. I think you add it there, and I think that covers what Mr. Wright is talking about.
How about adding to that, and Indiana code? And then we've got exactly what I suggested. And then there's no reason for us to quote. You can go ahead and quote it if you want to, but you put it under Indiana code and the Grant County handbook. And let it go at that.
Got that, Nicole?
Hmm.
You have that?
Fine. Katie helps me too.
You,
That not,
you haven't run out of tape, have you?
There's three of us.
That's
I
up
think
to
you
you.
guys don't realize it.
Well, we got Indiana code listed right at the very top, right?
Yeah.
In the red there, so it's already referenced to Indiana code in there. And then we're just saying, adding the handbook in 8.2.5 area. But we need to work on that wordage and then probably bring that back next meeting.
So we can go ahead and just.
So we keep on going down because there might be some other stuff in here.
could we consider the time, sir?
It's almost 9. I'd like to get through the bottom page 6. And then we'll have a brief, because we had an open forum. Anybody had a question from the public, and then we'll get out of here. So we can get to the bottom of page 6. There may be other things, hopefully not, that we may need to address or clean up.
We did.
Ryan, would it be safe to say that when we reference per Indiana code, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the exact wording of the Indiana code, but it's the origin of that text?
Most time I try to get it as close as possible. Sometimes it may say the unit and I'll put Grant County instead.
Okay,
But up there, like for the director, and that's something that we kind of took and separated out in our committee.
okay. Well, if that's what was happening, I just wanted to make sure that was stated, that it's a reference, not necessarily a verbatim text.
I'll just add the other thing that's not in there, at least I don't see it, is 8.2.8. I'm gonna start looking up each one on the
Okay.
code for you guys, so you know, if you have any questions, I have it handy. But 8.28 is not under 3674.312. Doesn't mean you can't have it. It's just not in there.
Well,
Should it stand
and
alone?
remember, the base of this was done 2 years ago.
Sure. It's still, you can still have it.
Okay.
It's just not in there now.
So you're saying that 8.28 is not in the Indiana code?
No, 1 through 7 are with we've already discussed 5. 8 is no longer in there.
All of 8, the executive director and plan commission is not in the Indiana code?
8.2.8, the maintenance of a current roster and qualification of its members, including records of attendance, is not in the Indiana code anymore.
Is
I
that
guess
record of
that's
attendance
just-
referenced somewhere else?
That's why I'm
Well,
looking back
The
to,
interesting thing is we say at the top is required by law for Indiana code 3674.3.12, then 8.2, other than 8.25 is exactly what the code says. Of course, that doesn't, we've had that discussion, but 8.2.8 is not in the code.
We'll need to stand separate if it's gonna be there.
You could have it there if you wanted, but that is not under Indiana code 3674.3.12.
This is not as presented then. It's being marketed.
Take it out.
in the code.
Read it.
Well, I mean, I'm the keeper of the roster as far as the administrative goes.
If it's not in Indiana code, which is.
So I don't have to keep the records?
No, you still need,
You put it somewhere else.
that's what I'm
There you go.
That's what
thinking.
I'm saying. That might be,
There you
that
go.
might be one of them that was in here that got put there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Need to look very carefully.
Fine.
Can't do that. I'm saying what we've been.
Alternate.
I'm the keeper of the records, the minutes, so 8.2.8 is all in here. We've got it labeled there. Responsible for management, all this one matters.
That needs to be inserted differently for us to consider. I would recommend that we consider adopting page 6 minus 8.28, which is to be inserted someplace else at a later time,
There are some other
just
changes.
to
that need
move
be
things
made,
along.
Bob.
Pardon?
There are some other changes that need to be made.
So if it's It's my, I mean, it's part of my responsibilities.
It is not Indiana code though, which so it's misrepresented here.
We're saying we just gotta get it in a different spot, because it kind of refers back with it being bullet pointed there. It's kind of thinking that it falls under that guidance when it's actually probably in a different spot.
And do we have a clarification at this point, if we're going to adopt this, as to what the hiring practice actually is? As Mr. Whitfield has told us that.
So that's where we're gonna get the better language in.
And what I suggest is let's, I'll get with Ryan and we'll rework that section and we'll represent it next meeting.
Right.
That way you don't, that
That
way everybody has it. It-
Right.
it's in front of them, there's no questions, we're not going back and forth. We'll fix that.
I make a motion, we accept what Mr. Glickfield just said. And that we end this evening and honor public input.
So we'll approve page 6 after,
I second. Is that a motion, Randy?
It was.
So we get
Well-
to page 6?
so we're gonna skip public forum.
No, we're not gonna skip.
No.
We're just closing this portion of the meeting,
Correct.
is what you want to do.
Correct.
All right,
I second.
let's call a roll. We're closing this portion of rules and procedures.
Atkins,
Yes.
Boswell,
Yes.
Yeah.
Royal. Huddle,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Nevers,
Yes.
Knuckles,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Nobody wants to hang around? I am disappointed in you guys. No. All right, next meeting is December the 4th. Public input. I know did you still want to mention or talk, Byron?
You know, I've been on this Byron Brinkle. I need to sign in.
Do you know who this is? Okay, do we got a sheet up there?
Yes, there is a sheet there.
Okay. Byron. That way they can get to do it out.
Okay. All right, so, yeah. I've been on the area plan for several years and I've never seen such a mess of confusion that this area plan is in right now. You know, when you brought that up, solar back months ago to start with, the comment was, what distance do we want? We talked about distance. And that's when you said, doesn't matter what you say, the commissioner's going to change it. Well, I'll tell you, as I look across here, very few of the guys have been to those meetings and heard the farmers, homeowners, businesses talk and come up with an agreement on a draft. And we sat here and try to talk this out and get something done. I don't think so. How do we handle this? First of all, we need to have the commissioners come and have a public meeting at the high school or where and face the public and answer questions. And that's going to be the beginning and the end of the confusion. There's so many people out here that have no clue. They either think it's a done deal, it's not a done deal, but it goes back to the commissioners because the commissioners are holding the bag. And 2 commissioners are not going to control Grant County farm ground, homes, and businesses. I'll tell you that publicly right now. And there's no reason why the commissioners cannot meet and hold a public meeting and answer questions. Do you agree, Mr. Wright?
Let me address that.
If you care to.
I'll address it. I've been to public meetings. I've been out to the fairgrounds for your public meetings, right? I've went to and had
One.
the solar companies come in and do their questions. I had 13 or 14 questions that I asked for people to give up and to address the solar companies. We had that out at the high school. I mean, I've been to a lot of public meetings. We've had a lot of public meetings here in this APC meetings before. And I've heard a lot of stories. Now, here's the deal. I know we've been, I would say we've not been bombarded. I think a lot of people thought we were going to be bombarded by people sending emails and calling us and things like that. I think I had 12 emails come in off of a postcard that was sent out. And I don't know how many of that went out to. You may know, if you're a part of that group, that may know how many postcards went out. I had 12 emails and 5 of them were telling me they were for solar. And so, you know, it's one of those things where it is the farmers who are very concerned, and there's reasons to have those concerns because of the price of farm ground, that you got to share crop and things like that. There's a lot to this, but you know, I have went to those meetings. You know, we talked about the meetings where people call you out and say you've been on the take. I got called out in a APC meetings about being on the take. Young man told me I was on the take out at the fairgrounds and stuff, and I called him down on it. My integrity is not for sale. You asked me point blank in the commissioners meeting, are you going to accept any money from a solar company? Guess what? I'm not. That's not my thing. My thing is I'm looking at investment coming into our community that we need so desperately. These are $200 million projects, and the economic development money that can come in off this can be in the millions. And I've got to take a look at that for 66,000 people that I represent, not just farmers. So that's my stand. I'll stand on that and be quiet.
Okay, the meeting that you set up at the high school, you said that you had cards you'd pass out, and we could talk to the solar company. Then somebody stole your cards.
I didn't get the cards. Right, the group had them clear back in the back. I wasn't aware of it. I didn't get them and stuff, but I had taken either. I asked everybody for their top 10 concerns, and I think we covered 13 or 14 that night. I couldn't, because there was good concerns and stuff, and so I had the solar companies address those concerns. And I, you know, Myron, I tell you, the easy thing for me to have done was come in and not do it. It's tough. It's tough to take a stand on what you believe is right for our community. And that's what I've done. And is there some things that needs to be changed in the ordinance? I mean, like the fees, you're talking about the fees and you're worried about county things. But I'm telling you, if you open it back up, all the things are going to be coming, you know, limit of acreage and this and that. I mean, it's all going to come. We've got stopgaps in this whole procedure when it comes to the application. And if they can't pass some of those, guess what? It doesn't come. It just doesn't come. I think it's in there to protect the county. And I've read through the ordinance and read through it and stuff. I haven't read through it lately to brush up. But I'm telling you, I think everything's in there to protect us, whether that be road usage and buffers and the setbacks. And I can tell you that the state has come up with a plan that there's extra money if we would come off of our 300-foot level of setback to go to 250. There's extra money that can be made at the county. I don't think we're interested in doing that. So, but you know, it's one of those things where we've done what we needed to do, and I'm just so.
You lack one thing you need to do: meet with the people.
I've done that.
No, publicly, call a public meeting. That meeting out there, nobody could ask a question or anything else unless you captured somebody outside. There's a lot of questions out here, and Commissioner Barsley wasn't there. Well, he came in and he left real quick. But you two commissioners, at least all 3 of you, would be best to call a meeting, because there's a lot of questions right now. For example, you know, one thing you said at that one meeting, you sat right beside me. We don't need a moratorium, because moratoriums don't have no end. What we do need is a moratorium. You know, I have met with the drainage board and asked Commissioner Barsley, who's the chairman, what happened to the moratorium that the drainage board set up? He said, we don't have to pay attention to them because they're not elected. Okay, but they're farmers. And our farm ground, our drainage and everything has absolutely no protection under draft 4. You can say that draft 4, yeah, they have to fix the tile. It isn't going to happen. We've got proof everywhere where these are all set up. But we need 3 commissioners, this is the bottom line, to call a meeting and answer questions. Just answer questions. And will you do that?
I'm not going to speak.
Pardon?
I'm not going to speak to that.
I know. Are you willing to do that?
I'm not going to speak to that.
You just answered the question. But anyway,
So again, these are all political setups because there's a lot.
no, it's not. It's
Oh,
not
yeah,
political
that's-
setup.
It's all, I mean, we're going to get more and more of this every meeting that we go to and stuff.
Steve, listen,
I've heard enough on my part.
no, you're going to hear a lot
I'm
more.
done talking.
I'm a 3rd generation farmer. And we are going to protect our farm ground. We're not saying you can't have solar, but we're not going to allow 2 commissioners to turn all of our farmland over to a solar company. You may think you're pretty powerful, but it ain't going to happen. You may win a battle, but you're going to lose the war.
There we go.
Excuse me, sir. You own farmland?
Absolutely.
Can you put a covenant on it to prevent solar from ever occurring there because it's your land, right?
Say that again.
Can you put a covenant on the deed to prevent solar from occurring there?
Well, I suppose I could.
Well,
mean-
it seems like you would want to, from what you're saying.
I don't think, well, I'm speaking for,
Well, anybody who doesn't want solar on farmland that they own, could easily, I would think, put a covenant on the deed that would prevent it, and then you.
that's about as asinine a statement of anything I've ever heard, Mr. Boyles.
How so?
How so?
Yeah.
Give me a break. I mean, we're under control of 2 people.
No, how so? Answer my question.
I just,
So,
who's,
why can't you put a covenant on it? What prevents you?
nothing prevents me, but that wouldn't change a thing. You don't know what you're talking about.
Point of order, Mr. President.
All right,
Absolutely nothing.
all right. Is there any other issues you'd like to bring up, Meyer?
And I'll talk to you later too.
Wait.
Looks like we have another speaker.
This is not a political thing. Pardon?
Yeah, it's okay, Mayor.
Okay,
You good with that?
thank you, Meyer.
I'm Ed Hartman. I think you probably all know me. One thing that's bothered me about this whole project is the secrecy. And, but some people seem to know. And if you're in the know and happen to know leases are recorded, then you can find out. But anyway, people are buying and selling homes nearby these, and they have no idea what's going on, that they're about to be surrounded by solar, or it'll be next to them. Boy, I would think anybody in this room would be upset about that. And I think the secrecy needs to come off. I think it needs to be known where these places are. And you say, well, okay, how do you get that out? First of all, I think you ought to notify every realtor that does business in this county where these leases are, where these solar farms are proposed, and that should be disclosed to anybody looking at that property. That's only fair. Realtors used to sometimes get sued if they knew something about a property and didn't disclose when a sale happened and there was something real negative about that property. This could be, people could sue if they're sold and then a solar farm goes in right next to them. And it's been something that could be known for quite a while. I think that's kind of important. And I think the secrecy really has no place in this county. We should be open to what's going on. We shouldn't be hiding it or allow it to be hidden by developers like this. That's real questionable business practice in some ways. The other thing is, utility companies can take land by eminent domain. You can't get around that. So consider that too. What may start out as a 2,000 or 3,000 acre solar farm may grow later on in a few years if it's determined there's a need. The Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission will be ruling on a proposed solar farm in Madison County probably next month. That could set a lot of change in motion right there. Good day, everyone. Thanks for hearing.
Anybody else? Up, one more?
I know it's late, but just because this was mentioned last time and you didn't have public comment time, and I am Julie, nobody else signed. Do you want to waste a piece of paper with me? Julie Hartman, 26, I'm from Vermont. Okay, you mentioned the executive committee. I think it's just confusing to me. Like there's an executive meeting, right?
Right.
And that is the only closed meeting that you can have, right? If an executive meeting, otherwise they're public meetings.
Executive meetings are closed. Correct.
Executive meetings are closed,
Correct.
but other meetings in the county are open.
If there's not a quorum, you don't need to have a meeting. So like the executive board, which is, I think we
But
decided.
is there an executive board?
Yes,
Is that in the code?
that is in our rules. And
Or is it
procedures.
an executive committee?
I don't understand the question.
An executive session is one that.
Of everybody, is everybody that's closed to the public.
An
And there's only certain
oh.
times we can discuss it this side.
Okay, so that's an executive meeting, but there's no such thing as an executive board. There's an executive
Yep.
session that's closed, and then there's an executive committee.
Yes.
Okay,
So there's no such thing as an executive board. There's an executive session and
Was it 5? Is that what we?
Six.
Six, because that's less than a quorum. So they could
Okay.
meet, discuss, but they cannot carry out any action because they'd have to bring it back to.
okay, Mr. Glickfeld, you were looking up things. Would you mind looking up that executive committee? Because I would in the code, because I thought that the code said it's from 3 to 9 members.
Yeah.
So you can have 9.
And all, I think that's the variance. We can make our mind, but if you have a large body, you could go up to 9. But ideally, the consensus is you do not want to have a quorum available in whatever you set up.
But we want to follow state code and we can have 3 to 9.
You cannot have a quorum on any executive board and meet.
Okay,
Not-
an executive committee?
I don't think there's 13 members. The executive committee's 5,
6.
6.
I just wondered if we could read this. I just wondered if we could read the state
Six is not
code.
a quorum. 7 would be a quorum, so 6 and under is allowed.
I was just wondering if we could read the state code on the executive committee.
It could be made up of 3 to 7. That's for statewide. So like in Marion County, if you have a board that's 30 people big, probably, I don't know. For 18
You asked me what the law is. The law is the quorum. You cannot have more than a quorum on an executive board.
Well,
So
then
this
why
one
does
says
the
13
state code say 3? Isn't it 3 to 9?
Well, we've got 13 members on here because we have 6 towns. The reason we have this number is because of what's under the umbrella.
I just wonder why we can't read the state code and follow the state code on the executive.
Because there's 2 codes at play here. You're talking about a code which gives you a range, but the open door law is a specific code which governs what you're talking about. And that's where it says you cannot have more people on an executive board, that a quorum or more you cannot have.
Okay, so an executive, what did the state code say? 3? We can have 3 to 9 members. So on our executive committee, we can have 3 to 9
No.
members.
We can't because the open door law, well, they could, but they have to meet in public.
I thought the executive committee was public.
I don't know. I don't think, no, no.
Do we have to advertise executive committee meetings?
Executive committees have got to be advertised.
Advertised.
So executive,
Public?
But they're not open to the public. And there's
Executive-
very limited things that can be discussed in executive meeting by
Okay.
statute. You can't just discuss it.
okay, so executive committee is a closed meeting and the executive meeting is a closed meeting.
Executive session.
Yeah.
Executive sessions are closed and executive committees are closed.
Well, I don't know if the executive committee would be closed or not. That's up to them to determine that, but yes, they can be closed.
Because it's not a
Because it's not a quorum, exactly.
Okay, do you mind sending that maybe or letting me know where that is, that executive committees are closed?
Yeah, ironically, I had it right in, I
Okay.
was looking at it earlier today, so I'll give you, if I still have it on here, I'll give you the site. Otherwise, you may call me at my office and
Do we
I'll
have to
tell you.
advertise that?
Okay,
We have to advertise executive.
But I just had that up here. Read under Indiana Code 5-14-1.5. 1.5.
five,
There's several sections under there. That should answer that for you.
okay, 514 dash what?
5-14-1.5.
Okay,
And then if that doesn't answer what you need, feel free to call me.
okay, all right, thanks. I just
Sure.
think all the executive, that's kind of weird how they put executive on both of those.
Well, again, you got different statutes at play and the open door law is going to govern in the particular instance you're talking about. The other statute you're referring to is just giving a range depending on the size of the board.
Okay,
Okay?
all right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, seeing no other comments, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
All right, thank you. Wake us up.
Too long a day.
Yeah.
They, now contacted all the superintendents, try to get rid of her.